Willie P. But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. This is part 3 of the mock off-season that I found really interesting from SB Nation, which is Hogs Haven. I think I credited this yesterday to Scott Jennings. My mistake if I did. I think I did. I feel like I said his name at least 15 times, which was a mistake on my part. This is from Mark Tyler of SB Nation. So, you know, both of those guys do a great job on that side in particular, but this one was Mark Tyler. Anyway, Mark Tyler put together an entire offseason, a mock offseason of what he would do if he were in charge of the Washington Commanders. In part 1, I really went over the linebacker position in particular. It is a position that has been a sore spot for Washington, and his biggest offseason acquisition was a linebacker. So I wanted to go over that position in particular, just in case some of you were thinking about maybe pursuing a free agent linebacker. Obviously, Cole Holcomb is one that is an in-house option and candidate to be back here. And so I wanted to give you all the options that were available potentially this offseason. And we went over that in part 1. Part 2, I went through the entire mock offseason of Mark Tyler's featuring the 3 R's, which was re-sign, restructure, and then release. And so you go through those things, and they totaled up, I think, roughly $60 million. But the money spent on the guys that you re-signed, which was Daron Payne. Matter of fact, let's just go through it real quick. I'll quickly go through all the things that he did yesterday. So the release, Carson Wentz, Logan Thomas, Chase Roullier, Cornelius Lucas, Andrew Norwell, saves you roughly $41 million. Restructure, Kendall Fuller. This is the last year of his deal, going into the final year of a 4-year, $40 million deal that he signed here in 2020. And so you restructure that, and you come away with a 3-year, $36 million deal, and you save $6 million there. And so you put that all into play, and you take away the guys that you've re-signed, and you come up with $46 million left. The 12 that Washington already had coming in, assuming the cap was $220 million, Washington would have 12 going into the offseason. You save all this money here with the releases that he made. You add in another 6 after restructuring Kendall Fuller, and you've got roughly $46 million to play with after re-signing the 3 players that he chose to re-sign, which was Daron Payne, Wes Schweitzer, and All-Pro Revo Jeremy Reeves. So here were the free agents that he decided to sign and spend big money on. Tremaine Edmonds was the biggest free agent signing, 5 years, $85 million. Caleb McGarry, right tackle for the Atlanta Falcons, 4 years, $68 million. Mike Gesicki, 3 years, $36 million. Cody Ford, guard out of Arizona, 3 years, $18 million. And Andy Dalton, he decided to throw a little stone there, 1 year, $3.5 million. So to complete the cipher, he also had a mock draft. So let's take a look at the mock draft. And keep in mind, and so I'm going to do everything that he did here. I'm going to keep a lot of the things he did the same in terms of, you know, basing it off of the $220 million. We'll take a look at some of the guys he released. I'll give you my opinion on just about everything that was done, and I'll tell you if I agree with it or not. And then we'll get into the 3 R's, and then we'll look at some of these free agents, things of that nature, what route I would go, because I don't necessarily agree with everything that's being done here. I think this is a fantastic offseason, though. If Washington were to do this, I would be excited about a lot of the moves that were made. Some I don't agree with, and I'll let you guys know about that. And I'm looking for the same feedback from you, whether you leave it in the comment section, you save it for Thursday night when we're live. That's when we'll go through all of this and kind of with a fine-tooth comb and really talk about it and discuss it, because I think this is going to be a big offseason. I've said that numerous times. Obviously, nothing trumps, ownership change, and we're waiting patiently for that. But after we get past that, and we'll be dancing in the streets first. Shake it, Warrior! We dancing in the streets! After we do that, then you got to take a look at the coaching staff. offensive coordinator void has to be filled. They got to figure out what they're going to do with the defensive backs position as well. Obviously, we haven't really talked about that. I'm kind of saving that for Thursday night as well, with the news that Chris Harris is going to go ahead, take a job, a lateral move, really. I think they're going to add to his title, which is what ultimately gives him the nod there. But he's going on to coach with the Tennessee Titans. I don't necessarily blame him, but we'll talk more about that on Thursday night. Let's look at this mock draft, however. And I'm not going to do a mock draft. That's the one thing I won't do, because you know how I am about mock drafts. Number one, I will give you guys some positions that I think will be necessary to draft. But you know how I am about mock drafts. To me, they're frivolous this time of the year because so much has left to be done. There's so many things that, can transpire that can alter the way you think about a draft. And so I'm not one to put out 77 mock drafts. I like to just do one ironclad mock draft later on in the process that kind of encapsulates what I think needs to take place after free agency has happened, after all the trades or anything that they're going to do has taken place, all the releases from the roster, which lets us know what is necessary. That's why, most sports have their draft first, and then they go with free agency so that they know what you need. I like it this way. I prefer to go get my free agents first and then see what I can supplement the roster with, or rather where I need to build the roster, via the draft. So anyway, I digress. He's got Joey Porter Jr. going to Washington. And most mock drafts, if you've been taking a look at these, most of these mock drafts have had a corner being given to Washington at 16. That's been the move for most of the mock drafts that I've seen, at least. Now, I've seen, multitude of names, but that's the position that essentially has been assigned to Washington at 16, which is not a bad position. Clearly, we need help at the cornerback position. That said, I don't anticipate Joey Porter Jr. being available. As a matter of fact, I'll go out on a limb right now and say he'll be the first corner taken in this year's draft, if not first, second. Whatever that means, first or second corner, it means that guy will be gone long before 16 is what I'm essentially telling you. I think Joey Porter Jr. is ultimately going to be a top 10 pick. So when it's all said and done, I think he's the first corner off the board, go somewhere in that 7 to 10 range, and we won't even have a chance to sniff at this kid. So it'd be great. I'd love it if he had a Marshawn Lattimore type of descent and somehow made it out of the top 10 and fell into our lap. But even Marshawn Lattimore didn't make it all the way to 16. I think he made it to, 11 or 13 or something like that to the Saints. 16 is a long fall for a guy with this talent and skill set. 6'2", runs a sub 4.5, long arms, pedigree, all of that stuff to match. There's no way that this kid gets out of the first 10 picks to me. And so I don't think he'll be there, but that's wishful thinking. But I think the right idea is there. Corner, if nothing is done in free agency, no one's traded for anything of the sort, I think corner is going to be the natural pick for Washington should they stay at number 16 and there isn't any other positions that trump, corner or players that they feel even better about on their board. Anyway, second round, I love this pick, Jarrett Patterson. I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. I've always co-signed. If you're coming to Notre Dame, I'll give you permission to come for 2 items. That is it. Do not shop at Notre Dame for anything else. You can shop for linemen, offensive or defensive, if you choose. I wouldn't recommend shopping for defensive linemen, but then knock yourself out. But offensive linemen for sure. I'll put my signature on that, and I'll sign off any letters of intent to draft tight ends from Notre Dame. You get the occasional defensive back, but I wouldn't sign off on that. But tight ends and offensive linemen, you got my blessing. So this is another really good player here that can play any of the interior positions. What do we need the most this offseason? Interior offensive line help. So he writes, let's go back to number 1, his first pick. He writes, Porter is a long, athletic corner who would be a great match opposite St. Juice on the outside. His 6'2" frame and 4.4 speed will allow great flexibility to others on the back end, which is something that they covet. You know what really hurt us down the stretch, and probably more than anything else, was the loss of Benjamin St. Juice. Him not being healthy going into the final stretch of the season was really a backbreaker. I mean, think about what happened against the Giants and how we couldn't get stops on third downs. Hell, we couldn't even get stops on fourth downs at times against the Giants. You think about the Browns game where you got Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper just devouring our secondary, wide ass open, and there wasn't anybody that could cover. It seemed like it's almost like we forgot how to cover, and it really hurt not having St. Juice back there. He comes back for the 49ers game. It's hurt on like the second snap. He gets, back. He comes back into the game, tries to gut it out. Clearly is compromised. They throw a shallow cross to, I think, George Kittle, and St. Juice can't even run and catch him. It was disturbing to watch. Obviously, that game, you had all kinds of receivers running wide ass open. You had a jet sweep go for a touchdown. I mean, we looked a mess. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Benjamin St. Juice wasn't out there. It really hurt this defense tremendously. Obviously, we pointed the finger at not having Cam Curl back there, and that was a big part of it. But St. Juice's absence hurt us as much as, if not more, than Cam Curl not being in the lineup. So I think corner is going to be a big need this offseason. But round 2, he has Jaret Patterson. Patterson can play all 3 positions on the interior, but I think center is his best spot, as do I. I agree with that. He can step in for the departed Rouie. Remember, Mark Tyler has Washington releasing center Chase Rouie this offseason. Round 3, he goes Warren McClendon, offensive tackle out of Georgia. McClendon is a very good athlete on the edge who just needs to work on his fundamental strength at the point of attack. His hand placement and ability to hit targets in space is exceptional. He can play either left or right tackle. So, this reminds me a lot of the kid we took out of Louisville. Can't remember his name, but you guys remember the guy we took in the 3rd round. We were hoping. Remember, that was the guy that pissed off Trent Williams. When we took him, Trent Williams started to feel some type of way. That was the beginning of the end of Trent Williams here in Washington. They take that guy out of Louisville. I don't remember what his name was. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. He ended up being ass for us, ass around the league, and I don't even think he's in the league anymore. And we took him in the 3rd round. And the same thing we said about him. He needs to get functionally stronger, but he's a great athlete, can do some things, and he can play left or right tackle, and he ended up playing no tackle for us. We'll see what happens with Warren McClendon. Anytime you're getting a guy off of a 2-time national championship winning team, you'd like to think that guy's going to add value to your football team. We'll see what happens, even if he's even available in the 3rd round. 4th round, this is a big pick. He decides to go QB, Tanner McKee. This was a guy that some people had going in the 1st round, which was asinine to me, but that's nor here nor there. Quarterback out of Stanford. McKee is a big linear quarterback who can really spin it. Not the most athletic guy out there. That's an understatement. He's one of those knee brace guys that doesn't move very quickly, which is, that's a red flag for me. But has plus traits that can be developed. I'm not a fan of that pick, just to let you know. But again, we'll go through these one by one. 5th round, Dayan Henley, linebacker, Washington State. Henley is an athletic, off-the-ball linebacker who has exceptional striking power. When he meets the ball carrier, we could use one of those. So, and I think that's right around the point in the draft that we should be taking a flyer on one of those types of guys. Hopefully they hit on this linebacker that they select. It's just so frustrating because remember last year, I wanted us to get the linebacker from Nebraska. I don't know why his name escapes me right now. And remember, I talked about him. I think I might have even mocked him to us. I did the Washington mock draft that I do every year. And I think I gave him to us in like the 4th or 5th round, right? And I was so excited about his skill set because I said, if you're talking Buffalo nickel, this is the guy that fits that criteria. He's a linebacker, but he was a former safety, and he's got that same kind of Thomas, Davis type of athleticism and skill set and build. And, he would fit perfectly into what you're trying to do, bringing a guy down into the box. And he can cover a little bit. Not, he's what you're looking for. This guy goes undrafted, and the Kansas City Chiefs sign him as a UDFA, and he's getting, crucial, critical minutes for the Chiefs right now. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what is going on out there? I hope they get this linebacker situation squared away. Anyway, um, here's another big one. Round 6, Noah Ruggles, kicker out of Ohio State. Listen to what he says. Ruggles was one of the top kickers in college football, pairing a big leg with great accuracy. Joey Sly's inconsistency during the season, especially when the playoffs were on the line, says it's time to look elsewhere. Importance of a good kicker in the NFL can't be underestimated. I agree with him totally about everything he said, except I'm not looking to spend a draft pick on a kicker if I don't have to. If you have to spend a draft pick on a kicker, knock yourself out. And he didn't do it in a round that breaks any of the rules. My rule is simple. If you want a specialist, I don't care of what variety, long snapper, punter, place kicker, it does not matter. It needs to be 5th round or later. He didn't break any rules. It's the 6th round. Whatever. Knock yourself out. We took Cam Cheeseman in the 5th or 6th round? I think it was the 6th round when we traded with the Eagles. So that fits the criteria, right? Here's the problem. Noah Ruggles, really good kicker. Got no issues with, what he was able to do in college. But did we just forget? Did our eyes deceive us? Did we not just see this guy miss a 50-yarder in the most pressure-packed situation with an opportunity to eliminate Georgia from the college football playoffs and be playing in the national championship game? Did we just not watch this guy absolutely get the yips and hook this thing from 50 yards out? And this is the guy you want to draft in the 6th round? And you're talking about Joey Sly missing big kicks? That guy just missed the biggest kick of his life, and you want to draft him? I'll pass. Thank you very much. And I'm not saying that he won't be a really good kicker in the NFL, but if he makes that kick, I'll draft him in the 6th round. Sure. He missed that kick. You're undrafted now. You're undrafted, and I'll give you an opportunity. I will say this. This shouldn't be one of those years where we used to have Dustin Hopkins and they wouldn't even bring competition to camp. There needs to be another kicker in camp competing against Joey Sly. He needs to feel the pressure. I like Joey Sly. I think he's got a big leg. I think he can be a really good kicker in this league, but the inconsistency last year, missed extra points, a couple of missed kicks in some big situations, clearly it can be costly. And as he mentioned, you can't underestimate what having a good kicker in this league can mean for your football team, especially a team like us who we don't blow anybody out. That's not our forte. We win a lot of close games. Field goal kicking, whether it's extra points or field goals, could be the difference in winning a game or losing a game. So I am firmly on board with bringing in a kicker. I don't know if I necessarily love bringing one in via the draft. I feel like I can use my draft picks in a much better variety of ways than spending it on a kicker in the 6th round. Sly, it's one thing if the kicking position was an abject disaster and you have to upgrade it, then yes, spend a draft pick on a kicker. Absolutely. That's not where we are. We got a guy that if we went back into the season next year, if we rolled Joey Sly out there, I'd be perfectly fine with it. So I don't need to draft a kicker. I just want to bring one into camp. Get a kicker that was really solid in college football last year. Get a young guy, right? Big leg, checks all the boxes, all right? And bring him in, see what he does. If you like this kid's temperament and he outkicks Joey Sly in the preseason and in camp, all right, slide Joey through waivers if he which he probably won't make it, because anytime a team needs a kicker, they're gonna come, calling for a guy like Joey Sly. That's why he was on 3 teams a couple of years ago when we got him, before we got him. But if he slides through waivers, you just stash him away on the practice squad for a rainy day. But I'm not drafting Noah Ruggles in the 6th round. I'm just telling you right now. Anyway, I digress. Round 7, final pick. And just so you know, I think Washington, this is another reason why I'm not a big proponent of, doing it this early. I think Washington is going to make a trade. Now, obviously, if they make a trade, it's not going to happen until draft day, right? So it's not, you wouldn't know to be able to adjust your, mock draft accordingly. But I think much like we saw last year, because as you can see, Washington only has 7 picks. I think they want to come out of the draft with, at a bare minimum, 8 selections, but more likely than not, at least 9. So that's going to require them to trade back, pick up additional picks somewhere in here, whether it's in the 1st or the 2nd round. Last year, when did they do it? I think they did it last year in the 3rd round, I believe. 4th round. I think it was the 4th round. where they traded back with Carolina, picked up 2 additional picks, including the 5th rounder that turned into, um, excuse me, UNC QB. Um, damn, why am I blanking on Sam Howell? Why was I blanking on his name? Sam Howell. So, and then I think Cole Turner was the other selection in the 5th round that they got out of that. So, everyone keeps talking about that trade and how that could be the foundation of turning this thing around. If ultimately that, if Sam Howell turns out to be good, that'll be the trade that we all look back on and said, hey, that was the foundation builder. All the shit that people talk about, Ron and Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney and company. If Sam Howell's successful for this team and he goes on to be a really good quarterback, we already see what Jahan Dotson is going to be. If Cole Turner turns out to be anything, hell, forget about anybody else. If Sam Howell turns out to be legit, that trade is worth its weight in gold, right? With the addition of Jahan and Sam Howell, that's it. You won the trade, right? But if Cole Turner turns out to be anything, if Fedarian Mathis or excuse me, Brian Robinson, we already see what we think he's going to be. That trade already feels like it's a win for Washington, just off the strength of, Jahan Dotson and Brian Robinson. If we get anything out of Cole Turner or Sam Howell, then you see what it is. Anyway, round 7, Ulysses Bentley, running back out of Ole Miss. Bentley is viewed as more of a third down type of back in the NFL. He's a solid blocker with good hands. So I think this is a J.D. McKissick type of, replacement. He never mentioned getting rid of J.D. J.D. signed a 2-year, $7 million deal last year. But I think a lot of people see the writing on the wall with J.D. That's the 2nd straight year he's had his season ended by a neck injury. I think many people think his career could be in jeopardy. We'll see what happens with him. But I am not a proponent of spending a pick at all in this draft on a running back. Now, obviously, Antonio Gibson's going into his final season of his rookie contract. I don't know if they're going to re-sign him or not. So from that standpoint, maybe you do need to take a look at a running back late in the draft. If you can find an Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round like the Chiefs did, I'm all for it. But I'm not looking for just a pass-catching, run-of-the-mill standard 3rd down back in the 7th round. With what we have at running back already, I'd be more inclined to draft a running back next year. Like, running backs, because they have such a short shelf life, I'm not wasting a year on a guy that's not going to play in the 7th round because I view the running back position, you can get a guy in the 7th round and have him immediately make your football team. Most 7th round picks don't make your team, right? We can all agree to that. However, if that guy's going to make your team, running backs a lot of times do in the 7th round because that's one of those positions you can get a running back anywhere. If that guy's to me, I can't waste a year of that guy. You're only getting him for 4 years. And I don't want one of those years, him sitting behind 3 guys that he can't get a sniff around. Like, he can't get by Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson. Hell, he can't even get in front of Jonathan Williams at this point. God forbid that J.D. McKissick is healthy and comes back. There's no way a 7th round running back makes the team, let alone gets any time on the field. So I think you could better utilize that final pick in the draft at a different position for this team. Whether you take another linebacker there, whether you take another corner. Clearly, we still need a nickel. He did not address nickel at all with anything that he did this offseason. Not in free agency, not in the draft. He took an outside corner. So that means he must think that the nickel is already on the team, which I beg to differ. Where's the nickel that you see on this roster right now? We still need nickel back. So I would rather use that 6th or 7th round pick on a nickel versus spending it on a kicker and a running back, guys that we aren't going to be able to use. Ruggles, in that case, if you're drafting a kicker, he needs to make the team. There's no guarantee that he outkicks Joey Sly, which is why I'm not in favor of bringing on a kicker via the draft. How about you just sign one as an undrafted free agent? There are going to be plenty of guys out there. Not saying that they're all going to be equal, but there'll be other kickers out there that are interesting, that had a really good collegiate career, that have big legs, that you can give a sniff to. How about the punt god? How about him? You know, well, he's actually more of a punter than a field goal kicker. He can kick field goals, but I'm good. And we can't take a flyer on a guy like that. We're not allowed to do that. Somebody else can do that. We can't do that. So anyway, it's a solid draft, mock draft, but I like I said, I disagree with some of the moves. I wouldn't take Tanner McKee in the 4th round at quarterback. Again, I'm looking for quarterbacks that kind of complement each other. He doesn't kind of fit in the mold of Sam Howell. I'm looking for another guy that has some athleticism. He doesn't quite fit that criteria. I'm not taking a kicker in the 6th round, especially one that I just watched choke from 50 yards out in the biggest kick of his life and the biggest game of his life. And then you have the audacity to attack Joey Sly's inconsistency. Nah, I'm good. And then Ulysses Bentley, I mean, probably a solid back. I haven't watched him. I can't tell you what he brings to the table, but all I can tell you is I'm not drafting a back in the 7th round this particular year. Maybe next year, you know, but there's no way that a running back's going to make this team if 3 out of the 4 guys are healthy. And you still have Jarrett Patterson as well, who I actually liked what I saw from him in week 17 against Dallas. We don't need another running back personally. Spend that pick on something else. And we got plenty of positions that we can throw a dart at. Tight end is one of them. You know, linebacker is another one. Another offensive lineman, you can't hurt there. How about a defensive end? All right, you can't sign everybody back. How about a defensive tackle? These are all things that we could use before getting another running back, personally. But anyway, I digress. So you put all of that stuff together, and that is the mock offseason of Mark Tyler of Sports SB Nation, a.k.a. Hogs Haven, the affiliate that covers the Commanders. What do you guys think about all of that? And for me, I will go over that entire offseason, kind of give you my perspective on a lot of those things, what I would do in some of those situations, and we will really go through it with a fine-tooth comb on Thursday night. I look forward to chopping up, which is why it's important that you watch parts 1, 2, and 3 so you will be in the know. The last thing you want to do is be that girl or guy when we're talking about this stuff on Thursday, and you're like, huh, what? What is he talking about? What is he referencing? Watch the videos, okay? Parts 1, 2, and 3. It's best if you watch them and consume them in order, but you don't have to, theoretically speaking. The 3rd one doesn't make sense if you haven't watched the 2nd one. So you can watch the 2nd one and then go back and watch the 1st one. I mean, it's not going to kill you. But it'd be best I put them in sequential order for a reason. So just consume them in that order if at all possible. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I'll see you guys on Thursday night live for the Command Post. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.